Hello, students. This is Sam, sir. And today we are going to do the second chapter of this book known as Fundamentals of Human Geography. The name of the chapter is The World Population Distribution, Density and Growth. Now, the patterns of population distribution in the world means the way people are spaced over the Earth's surface. Patterns of population distribution and density help us to understand the demographic nature of an area. You know that 90% of the world population lives in 10% of its land. As you can see in this diagram, that most of the people are living in the Asian countries, and this is the trend going to continue in the future. Now, this is a projection of the world population by the year 2064, uh, when India will be the leading in population. We'll have a population of 168 million people. 168 crore people, sorry, and the world population is expected to go up to 103 billion. The summary of this chapter will be that we shall be learning the reasons for the distribution of population. We'll also learn about the trend in population growth. We will also learn about the impact of population change. The reason we need to study this is because each unit of land has got limited capacity to support people because the resources are limited. So it is necessary to understand the ratio between the population and size of the land. This helps us understand what pressure the people are putting, the population is putting over the resources. You already know this from the previous chapters, especially of book number 2, that the density of population is calculated as population divided by the area. So, in case you have a population of 150,000 people spread over 100 square kilometers, you can divide 150,000 by 100 and arrive at a density as 1,500 people per square kilometer. Now, this is a table about the region-wise density of population of the world. In this, you can see that Asia is the most populous, and it contributes to about 60% of the world population. And this is expected to grow to 80% in the coming years. That means out of every 10 people, 8 people will be Asians. Now we will look at the factors influencing the distribution of population. There are geographical factors such as availability of water, landforms, climate, soils, economic factors such as minerals, urbanization and industrialization, and also social and cultural factors which influence how the population gets distributed over land. Geographical factors, as we just mentioned, are these four. Let us look at them one by one. Availability of water is very important for the distribution of population because water is important for all the life activities, whether it is biological or social or domestic. It is needed for domestic use such as drinking and washing, bathing, cooking, and also for the livestock. It is also needed for industries, for agriculture, for power generation, for navigation. That is the reason we find that the river valley civilizations they developed around the rivers. People prefer to live on flat plains when it comes to landforms, and gentle slopes are also all right. But the difficult areas people avoid. The areas which are flat plains and gentle slopes are favorable for agriculture, constructions, roads, industries, etc. The northern plains fulfill all these points, so it's densely populated. Developing roads and agriculture and industries in mountainous and hilly areas is difficult. If it is not for specific use, let us say for pharmaceutical production, and if the production requires very clean air, then they prefer hilly areas also. In this slide, you have a normal house on a plain, and you can have the facilities of parking. You can have an easy access to your house. But when it comes to this, of course, this is a monastery. Can you imagine living here? Can you imagine going to the market from here? Can you imagine going to shopping from here? It's going to be extremely difficult. Maybe it's good enough for the monks; they don't get disturbed, but that's difficult place for normal people to survive. The next factor is climate. Extreme climates, whether it is very hot or very cold or very rainy, are uncomfortable for human habitation. Regions which with not much seasonal variation in climate attract more people. The present climate of Mediterranean region densely populated because of this region since early history. On one hand, we have the desert, very hot and very dry and very sandy. On the other hand, we have areas near the poles where it's extremely cold, and usually people avoid this kind of zones. A Mediterranean area is very good climate wise. It's neither very hot nor very cold. So such climate is preferred, and this is the reason why this area is highly populated. The next determinant is the type of soil. We have various type of soils, and different minerals are present in different ratios in such soils. Also, the composition of soil is different, and that makes it suitable along with the climate for different type of crops. Fertile soils are important for agriculture and related activities. Areas with fertile, loamy soil have more people living on it, as this can support intensive agriculture. Areas with poor soil have thin population density. Example of this type of soil supporting thin population density is the region of Kashmir bordering Pakistan and Tibet, and also in the northern part of Sikkim. The economic factors which influence the distribution of population is minerals, urbanization, and industrialization. The earth has a variety of minerals, and these minerals are important for extracting metals and for plant life and also for human life. So they influence the distribution of people. Areas with mineral deposits attract industries. Example, in Katni region of Madhya Pradesh is known for limestone, and you also have several cement industries around that area. Dhanbad is good for coal. Also, some parts of Madhya Pradesh, such as Singrauli. Korba in Chhattisgarh is rich in aluminium, so you have Balco there manufacturing aluminium. Bailadila is a region in Chhattisgarh, so named because the hills look like the hump of an ox, and they're rich in iron ore. Malajkhand in Madhya Pradesh is rich in copper, and Panna in Madhya Pradesh and Kolar in Karnataka give diamonds. They have diamond mines. So this mining and industrial activities generate employment, and you can often find skilled and semi-skilled workers. They move to such areas and make it densely populated. Urbanization means the spreading of cities. The cities spread. If they are not able to spread sideways, they spread vertically upwards. And wherever the scope is there to spread sideways, we have the expansion of cities. Then cities offer better opportunities for employment. A person who goes to cities feel that he can always find another job if he is not happy with the current one. Cities offer better scope for education and healthcare. The transportation is much better. Communication and the civic amenities you get in cities is superior. And of course, there's an attraction to city life. People who live in the urban, rural areas, they often wonder how people in cities live, and some once, at least in their lifetime, usually they go and find out for themselves. That is the reason the large cities attract a large number of migrants every year. Industrialization means the growth of industries. and industrial belts develop job opportunities. The residential colonies of the workers come up near the industrial areas, and because they are there, the supporting industries to that is transportation, shops, healthcare services, vehicle services, and vehicles, education, banking, insurance, and you name it. It's all there. People require everything. So such areas they develop, and people come and start living near that area, and this makes it densely populated. Then there are social and cultural factors as well. Areas with better housing, health facilities, and education are more populated. Example, Pune, which is near Bombay. Bombay is very expensive, but Pune is not so much and has got a better climate. Better transportation, whether it is road transportation or railways transportation, if the access is there, it contributes to increased population as compared to if you need to travel and if you need to first come down to railway station traveling a long distance, then such places are not populated much. Then places with cultural and or religious importance are also attracting people. Example, the city of Benares. Now we'll see some basic concepts of population geography. Population growth, this we have learned earlier also. The change of population in a particular area in a particular time is known as growth of population. For example, if we look at the year 2001 and we say that the population was 102.70 crores and 2011 has a population of 121.02 crores, then the growth in the numbers is the difference between these two numbers. That is 18.15 crore people have been added to the population of 2001. Now, if the same thing has to be expressed in percentage, it can be done very easily that growth of 18.15 crore people, you have to compare it with the old population, that is 102.70 population of the year 2001. When you do that, you get the growth, and when you multiply that with 100, you get the growth in percentage. Now let's see what is natural growth of population. The increase of population due to the increased difference between births and deaths in a particular region and time is known as natural growth of population. So it's very simple to write. Just subtract the number of deaths from the number of births. That's all. Now there's something known as actual growth. In that you also take into consideration the migration. So that here what you do is you add to the natural growth the difference between the people who have moved in and the people who have moved out of that area. Now, the positive growth of population happens when the birth rate is higher than the death rate or when people migrate. The negative growth of population is if the population decreases between 2 points of time, then we call it as negative growth of population. It happens when the birth rate falls below the death rate or when people migrate to other places. Now let's look at the components of population change, that is birth, death, and migration. We have the concept of crude birth rate or CBR. This is defined as the number of live births in a year per population of 1000 people. Of course, we do not take into consideration the children who were born, the infants who were born and then died uh, before their birth. That is, stillborn children are not taken into account. And the formula is the number of births upon population into 1000. And P population is taken as a mid-year population of that area. Death rate plays an important and active role in the population change. Population growth occurs not only by increasing birth rate but also due to decreasing death rate. The crude death rate CDR is a simple method of measuring mortality of an area, and this is expressed in terms of number of deaths in a particular year in a population of 1000 people. So to put it in a formula, it is equal to the number of deaths divided by the number of people and multiply that with 1000. The P population is taken as an estimate, just an approximate number of the mid-year population of that year. Now, the factors which are affecting the mortality rate are this: the region's demographic structure. If we have more children and if we have more old people, then naturally the death rate will be higher, especially among the elderly people. So that is the meaning of the first point. Then the social advancement of the region. If the area is socially very advanced, then the mortality rate falls. Then the level of region's economic development. If a region is poor, the people there will not be able to afford medical facilities, so that mortality rate will be higher, and vice versa. That is the meaning of the third point. Migration means moving from one place to another for a long duration. It can be for long duration, it can also be seasonal or permanent. Such a movement is known as migration. Now, in this, you have to learn certain terms. Place of origin means the place from where one moves out. Suppose you move from here to United States of America, your place of origin will be India. Then place of destination is the place you move to. And our example, your place of destination will be the United States of America. And migration is an effort to achieve a better balance between population and resources. Now, the same person can both be an immigrant and an emigrant. Now, immigrant is a person, is a migrant who move into a new place. So, in our example, when you move to United States of America, you will be called as an immigrant there. And an emigrant is a migrant who moves out of a place. So, in our example, if you move out of India, you are thought to be as an emigrant from India. And people migrate for better economic and social life. Now, let's see, there's a theory called pull and push theory. We'll see that. There's a factor known as push factor. Now, let's see what it is. The push factor is a factor which drives people from a place. This is usually a negative factor and which makes people think, no, I have to leave this place. And the place of origin seems less attractive. The reasons could be many. It can be unemployment, poor living conditions, it can be political turmoil, it can be unpleasant climate, it can be occurrence of natural disasters, epidemics, as in case of pandemic that you know already, then social and economic backwardness of a place. It can be disasters such as drought and famine, etc. If a person experiences a push factor, he or she will uh, do a research what could be a suitable place for me. And then the person starts finding reasons, uh, more reasons, exploring more, and then those reasons become the pull factor. So, what are these? These are the positive factors which make the place of destination seem more attractive than the place of origin, which was already seeming to be negative. Then, an example could be better job opportunities, better living conditions, better climate, more peace and stability, security of life and property, better environment, culture, and socio political conditions, and so on. Now, let's look at the trend in population growth. Now, when we look at the population of Earth starting from a time 12,000 years ago, that was a time when agriculture started on Earth, and till today, till last year, that is till 2019, we find that the population was very stable, it was rising, but it was a very slow rise indeed. And uh, uh, by the year zero, that is the time of birth of Christ, it rose, and in 14 centuries, in that is in 1400 years, There was a pandemic in Europe which killed 200 million people, that is 20 crore people died. So you see a dip here, and then it rose to 600 million. Then industrial revolution pushed it higher, and now we are at 7.71 billion people as of last year. Vis-a-vis, if you see the scientific revolution, we have the first agricultural revolution when the agriculture started first, and then the beginning of pottery, invention of plough, then so on, metallurgy, beginning of writing, beginning of mathematics, what was very, very slow, and then it picked up suddenly. And then we have the Genome Project, and we have the man on the moon, and exploring other planets also. The population of Earth today is more than 7.71 billion. Please bear in mind that your textbook says 7 billion, but that's the figure of 2011. That is the last census figure. The next census will be in 2021, that is next year, and also next year is the year of your board exam. So you should know that figure when that figure comes to us. The population in the early periods grew slowly but increased at a very rapid rate in the last few hundred years. The world population was roughly 8 million 12,000 years ago. That was when agriculture was introduced. In first century, it was less than 300 million, and the expanding world trade in 16th and 17th century pushed up the population, and the industrial revolution pushed it up further upwards in the year 1750 to some 550 million people, and afterwards we see an explosion in population after the industrial revolution. The technological advancement helped in the reduction of birth rate uh, and provided a stage for accelerated population growth. Now, if you see what is doubling time means the number of years in which the population multiplies by 2 times. So, here you see in the year 1650 AD and 1804 AD, the population doubled from 500 million to 1000 million, but it took 154 years to do that. But when you look at 1927 to 1974, a gap of 47 years, and again the population doubled. And now you compare 47 years with 154 years. It's roughly one third of the time. And now by the year 2025, the population will grow to some 8,000 million, that is 8 billion. And it would have taken 51 years from 1974 to double. Now let's see what is the role of science and technology in the growth of population. Increased agriculture and industrial production is an important factor. The steam engine replaced human and animal energy, and it provided mechanized energy of wind and water, and vaccinations reduced the deaths because of communicable diseases and epidemics. Then improvement in medical facilities and sanitation contributed again to the decline in death rates all over the world. It took more than 1 million years for the world population to reach 1 billion mark, but just 12 years to rise from 5 billion to 6 billion. The doubling time of the world population is reducing fast, and the developed countries take more time to double their population when you compare them to developing countries. Most of the population growth is taking place in developing countries. Please bear that in mind. We'll be talking about that. We'll look at a graph shortly. Now, if you look at the pattern of the population change in the world, the average growth rate has reduced in one decade from that's in 20 years, 2 decades, from 1.6% to down to 1.2%. But at the same time, the growth rate of Africa has increased by 0.2%. Europe we see has reduced by half. Also North America almost by half. Latin America again almost by half. Asia is by 60%. And Oceania has remained almost the same. Now, the average growth rate for India given in your textbook is 1.64%, because that is from the 2011 census. But if you see the figures of today, it is 1%, and it is very similar to the global growth rate. Our growth rate is reducing. The low population growth rate in developed countries when compared to developing countries, there is low population rate of growth in developed countries. Now understand the second sentence. Negative correlation exists between economic development and population growth. That is, if economic development is more, the population growth will be less, and if the economic development is less, the population growth rate will be more. Although growth rate seems low, it is not so actually, because even a small rate when applied to a large population means very large population change. To understand this, imagine that you have two people in front of you. One person has got 1 lakh rupees as fixed deposit, and the other person has got 50 lakh rupees as fixed deposit in a bank. The rate of interest and the duration of the FD is same. So the one who's having more money in the bank will be earning more interest, and his money will be multiplying at a faster rate in terms of rupees. Same thing happens to population. If the population itself is high, if the population itself is large, even if the rate of increase is small, the number of people added every year to that population is large. A small increase in population is required. It is desirable for a growing population economy. But population growth beyond a certain limit or level leads to problems. Uh, the main problem is the depletion of resources. It can be water, it can be land, etc. It's like, to understand this, imagine that you have a family of 4 people and a monthly income of 40,000 rupees. And imagine that two relatives who are not having jobs come and request your family that no, we need help and we'll stay with you. But they don't contribute in terms of income. So you have 6 people and the same resource, 40,000 rupees. So now you find that you're not able to save any money at the end of the month. Now, population decline is also a matter of concern, because when it happens, it indicates the resources are not sufficient anymore to maintain or to support that population. That's a concern. Now, we'll look at demographic transition. This can be used to describe and predict the future population of any area, like a linear progression on a graph. The population of any region changes from high birth and high deaths to low births and low deaths as a society progresses from rural, agrarian, and illiterate society to urban and industrial and literate society. These changes occur in stages, and they are collectively known as demographic cycle. In the previous chapter, you learnt about environmental determinism and possibilism. In environmental determinism, the environment was itself determining the cultural factors of a society. But when it came to possibilism, the person living in such a place is not controlled or dominated by the environment. He can make his changes and utilize the best from the available environment. Now look at this graph. This is a demographic cycle graph. In this graph, there are 3 distinct phases or stages. There's one, the one on the left is known as stage 1, the middle one is stage 2, and the third one is stage 3 at the right hand side. Now, there are lines of 3 colors in this. There's one red colored line rising from the left and going towards the right, increasing. That is the that is denoting the total population. Now we are talking about the global population. In the first stage, the blue line is representing the death rate, and the pink line is representing the birth rate. In the first stage, you will find that this is this wave pattern. The death rate is increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing, increasing, and then going low. The birth rate is decreasing, increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing, and then going low. When it comes to the second stage, we have the death rate below birth rate, and the gap between them is the natural growth of the population. Then in the third stage, we have the birth rate decreasing, increasing, decreasing, and increasing. We have the death rate increasing, decreasing, and increasing and decreasing. But the increase and decrease is not much. It's almost like a flat line when you compare it to the first stage. Yes, another one. Just like in the first case you have the death rate fluctuating quite a lot, stabilizing and taking a dip. Then you have the birth rate dipping, and finally you have the third stage where you again see some variations. Now let's study them stage by stage. Stage one is that of high fertility and high mortality. Because people reproduce more to compensate for the deaths due to epidemics, we can also add pandemics to that. And unstable and unreliable food supply. This is a stage of slow population growth. Most people are engaged in agriculture where large families are an asset. People consider if the number of the family member is large. If the number of people is more, they can all contribute to manual labor in the work of agriculture. Such a society has got low life expectancy, and most of the people are not literate or illiterate, mostly illiterate, and they have low level of technology. This is similar to environmental determinism, which you learnt in the first chapter. When you look at the second stage, this is the stage of high fertility, but it's declining. Fertility remains high in the beginning but declines with time, and it is accompanied by a reduced mortality rate. Improvement in sanitation and health condition reduce mortality rate. The net addition to the population is high because of this gap. This is the stage between the two types of society. One was environmental determinism. The modern one was known as possibilism, and this is known as neo-determinism or neo-possibilism, the stage between the two stages. And the third one is stage 3 is fertility and mortality decline. The population is either stable or is growing slowly. The society is urbanized. The society is literate. The technological knowledge is superior. And there's a tendency to deliberately control the family size. This is the stage of possibilism which you learned in chapter 1. Then family planning, that is spacing or preventing birth of children. These are the methods of controlling the population. Access to family planning services is a significant factor in limiting population growth and improving women's health. And to do this, there's quite a lot of propaganda and availability of contraceptives. This tax incentive, as in case of Russia, some countries, if the number of children is more in Russia, for example, the population is falling, they give tax incentives. In some countries, if the population with large population, if you add to your families, then you get tax disincentives. And this is one method of controlling the growth of population. And the reason is the number of people should not grow faster than the food supply, because otherwise it will lead to famine, diseases, and war. That will be a critical condition for the entire world. So it's always better that we have preventive checks rather than a physical check. Nowadays, pandemic COVID-19 is having a physical check on human beings, and this is needed for the stability, sustainability of our resources. Because our resources are limited, we need to use them in such a way that we benefit from them and also leave sufficient resources of good quality and good quantity for the future generations. I'm Sam Sir. If you feel you have benefited from this chapter, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Um, is that ice cream? Uh, you eat it before it melts. Bye for now. Wait for my next video.